Hi, I'm Mitch, and welcome to the Restoration Road. My guest today is Art Templar, who is going to share an absolute miracle that only God could do. Hi, I'm Mitch, and welcome to the Restoration Road, where my guest today is Art Templar. Art, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
You're an amazing man. It's not fair that you have that full head of hair. You were very involved in the First Missionary Church with our mutual friend, Burl Keener.
Correct.
I think that's just awesome.
We were also involved with a group, Burl and I, called Men for Missions.
Oh, that's awesome. What did that do?
Men who were involved in missions, and we'd keep track of various missionaries around the world that we were supporting. And oftentimes we'd end up going together, our group from Indiana. They're founded down right just south of Indianapolis, a little ways, and
awesome.
Wonderful man.
Yeah, he really was. He was a good friend of mine. He traveled with me for a whole year to collector car auctions, and he would buy and sell, and we had a great time. Yeah. You grew up in a Christian home. You grew up going to church, but what was really interesting is that you were an adult very early. You were buying and selling and rebuilding cars, buying duplexes. Where did you get that entrepreneurial spirit?
From my father. My father, I knew at 11 what I wanted to be, and I wanted to be in business with my dad the rest of my life. But God didn't quite see it that way.
What?
At 11, he took my father's life. He went home to be with the Lord at 44 years old, very young man, and he had uremic blood poisoning set in after a kidney stone operation, and it's at 11 years old that grabs you as a boy.
How did you handle that, and how did you process it?
I think I'm still processing it in some ways. I could not understand it, but every day, you learn a little bit more, and you learn a little bit more, and I can say at 76 now, God never makes a mistake that I am aware of.
Wow.
And I know he doesn't. Oftentimes I didn't understand, as many things still today. But know beyond a shadow of doubt, he's absolutely perfect in everything he does in his timing. We don't always be on his time scale.
Yeah, I say wow because of your perspective of that. That's really something, because the pain of a loss is so hard, and it is difficult to process. But when you think about how long ago that was and the amazing impact that your life has had since, in many ways, God is using your relationship with your dad to multiply his kingdom through other people, through you today.
Exactly.
How in the world did you get in the radio business? You ended up owning WXKE that I grew up in high school listening to the doctor. Can you tell me the story about how you got to there?
Well, that was my life's dream. I wanted to be in broadcasting. In high school, went to school with Carolyn Sievers. That was Bob Sievers' daughter.
Legendary radio host on WoWo.
Correct. And many times I would go down to the station and just hang out. Another friend at the church that I went with, he wanted to be in broadcasting. He and I would sometimes go down together. He ended being the chief engineer for all the Westinghouse stations, of which WoWo was one of.
Yes.
And it was his job to keep them all on the air.
Wow.
And then I had another Christian buddy, and his job was that he wanted to just be an air talent. And I don't say just, but
that was his focus.
Yeah. And so he was the first one to get into broadcasting. He got hired as a DJ. He ended up finally in Philadelphia, one of the better stations, and had a wonderful career. Bill Ryan was the other one who wanted to be an engineer. And that's a pretty nice job, when you can just fly around all over the country and get off and check on the station and come back. And that made it very interesting. But I wanted to be there, and I wanted to get involved in ownership. Well, nothing was available at the time, and by the time those doors opened, I fortunately was able to have enough wealth to be able to put it all together, and
You had
I didn't have
owned-
to take on owners with me.
You had bought and sold cars, bought and sold duplexes. You owned a Burger's Dairy Store on Broadway, I think the first one in our area.
Yes.
So you'd done all these things, but
Yes.
you were taking that entrepreneurial spirit to where your dream really was.
Right.
So a station frequency becomes available. Is that right? A license becomes
There's
available?
so many. They're all plotted out what they were, and this was a new one. What had been available but never used. It just laid there.
Okay.
And Stanley Tam from over in Lima, Ohio.
I met with him. He helped change my life. God owns my business.
God owns my business. Big sign out on Highway 30.
Mm-hmm.
Can't miss it. Well, anyhow, he had applied for the license. And when he and I met, he says, you know, Art, he says, I'm feeling like God's got a nail through my one foot. He says, everything going towards this, I'm just going around in circles. And he says, you know, I'm beginning to think I need to pull that nail up and pull out and let you have the station.
Amazing.
So there's where God had put the station together and was holding it for us. And in our timing, the right timing, it became available.
And that was 103.9, and you did a survey, and you discovered that you needed to do this unique genre combination. What was it?
What I needed to do was, I thought, Christian contemporary music in its early stages and classical music. Didn't work out that way. Fort Wayne Bible College had filed for a license on the educational channel,
Mm-hmm.
and they had their license in 60 days. So by the time we got around to getting ours, it was taken. They were on the way and doing well.
And that would be
So-
WBCL?
Correct.
Mhm.
And so we had to figure out what we wanted to do. I kind of wanted to go down the road of middle-of-the-road music with a lot of community involvement. And we did that first, but that's probably the slowest build format to get on the money road to being in the black
Mhm.
instead of in the red. And so we went back to the drawing boards, took a survey again, and found that album-oriented rock was where it was at.
That was incredible. So that starts the momentum, and then NBC ends up entering a contract with you?
Yes, it used to be you could not be a NBC affiliate until you had 5 years of proven first-class ratings. And I thought, what do I got to lose? Yes, and I'd get nothing, you know.
Mm.
So we talked to them. We got to meet with each other, and things were really very well liked. And they said, we're going to take you as our NBC FM affiliate. And from that, got me into, I was for a short period of time on NBC's board of directors on the FM station. That's because they had 12 owned and operated stations.
Mm-hmm.
They were always constantly tie voting.
Oh.
And here's an outsider, a young pup into the business, and they put me on there for the purpose of casting the tie-breaking vote.
You're the tiebreaker.
I was the tiebreaker.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, you build this successful business, and I thought it was really cool that 3 people that you had hired were at the station 42 years later. So you had a really good eye for hiring people and having them buy in.
And they're still there to this very day.
That's just incredible.
Yeah.
Well, you sell in the early 80s, and you do more things with your life that you wanted to, but I want to get to the point of the miracle that happened the day after Christmas. Can you just describe that day best you can to us?
Well, it was a beautiful day. Sun was just shining, bitter cold. The trees were just glistening in the sun, and the grass was glistening. And we had to go to Fort Wayne. We live up at the lake year-round now, and we thought we'd take the back road in and take one of our classic cars and just enjoy ourselves. And it was a rear-wheel drive, and most people that are involved in cars know you do not use cruise control in the winter.
Right.
And I had forgotten that, I guess. And but I always test the ground to make sure there's no ice on it. There wasn't, and I put the cruise control on about, I would say, 2 to 3 miles down the road. I hit a piece of black ice and spun the car around. It tore the wheels, or tires off of the wheels, bent the wheels. Mind you, we're still doing 55. I'd keep hitting the brake, and the cruise would not come off. So we're taking this rough ride, and we're going up this mound, which a fellow had apparently planned to put trees on in the spring. And when we got to the top of the mound,
You're coming off a 2-lane road,
Yes.
going up off the road onto this mound, big dirt mound on the side of the road.
When we get to the top, we both see that there's a pond over here, and there was no way to avoid it. So the car, like in the movies, it would jump. Yeah, and it came down, landed on all 4 of the ice, broke it into big pieces, and it was about 6-8 inches thick of ice. And we started to sink. And my dear wife, we always have devotions when we're coming into Fort Wayne and we're a little bored with everything. We say that's the greatest time to pray and read and whatever, and still be alert to what's going on. But
were you doing that morning?
Yes, we were already in contact with God before the accident happened. So it was very easy for her to cry out and me, "We need help, God. We need help now." And sure enough, with the car started to sink, as I'm looking up and seeing, you could not see this pond from the road. And nobody around. It was like 9:30 on day after Christmas, when we knew most of the people were either returning things or looking for bargains somewhere. And so the roads were already been traveled across. But then I blacked out briefly, and I came back to, and I thought, this is electric windows, electric door locks. We're locked in here. Lord, we need to.
What kind of car was it?
92 Lincoln Town Car.
Beautiful car.
Just totally restored, not restored, original, but brought up to mint condition, yes.
You're in this Lincoln Town Car.
Yes.
John Fabini, one of the greatest customizers on the planet.
He says, I never seen one this nice.
The ice is shattered. It's 6-8 inches deep. The electrical locks and windows, you're not going to be able to get out, and you're starting to go down.
Yeah. So I tried to key and see what would happen. Sure enough, I got my driver's window down, but that was it. That ended it.
What do you mean you turned
the ignition key on to see if there's any battery. And it came on, and I could just get that window barely down. And from that point, everything went out. Water had gotten over the top of the battery and shorted everything out.
Okay.
So
the water's getting close to the bottom of the window?
I would say it's just a little bit above our waist.
It's in the vehicle?
Yes, it's in the vehicle. And I had just had 2 knees operated on and removed and replaced just not too much prior to that. I could have never swam. Wife said, you've got to go first if we get out of here, because if you stay here, you'll drown. If you go, help us on the way.
I've put a sprained ankle in ice water before, and that is just almost unbearable at first. Is that the way that water's feeling as it's coming in? I mean, you just got to be so cold.
Yes. You know what it reminded me of, and this is where I think of, and then I want to get back on this, but that first thing I was telling you about my father passing away, and we were over at McCombs, and everybody went downstairs, and I told Mom I'll be down in a moment. I climbed up on that casket, and I went to put a hug around my dad, and I hit that ice-cold body. And I, for the first time, understood what death was, and that's the way that water felt. And so that's that way. Anyhow, we look up, and here's 2 people we didn't realize at the time were angels. standing on the top of the hill and said, "Do you need help?" And yes, we do. And have you contacted the police? We think we have. My pocket's wet, my phone's wet, and wife's was wet, and we don't know if we made total contact. We also didn't know exactly where we were.
You had dialed 911 or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So anyhow, these two fellows, which I know now were angels, said, "We'll be back in just a little bit. We want to go get one of these pole ropes that you use to pull a vehicle or something, you know, the yellow strap, come in 20 and 30-foot lengths," I found out later. And we were 50, 60 feet out into the water.
Oh, my.
So 50, 60 feet out in the water, how's a 20, 30-foot rope get you?
Right.
It had to multiply. And he said, we're going to want to pull you off the window. At that time, while they were going to get the rope, I have no clue and cannot remember anything how I got from sitting on the seat up to sitting on the window. And my head looking around. Had to be more than another angel unseen, at least one. And the car...
You even had a pacemaker installed, right?
Yes, and had a pacemaker installed.
This whole thing is just not a good thing for...
Just prior to the knee surgery. My heart was beating only about 40 beats a minute. And when they put me in for the check, they put a pack they hang on you, walk around, whatever. They discovered when there was emergency come up, or your heart needed to beat faster, it'd go in reverse. Oh. And it'd only beat about 25 beats a minute. And I couldn't figure out, why can't I get around? Why can't I walk? Why don't I have any energy? That was why. So they said, if you had been on the table, we'd have lost you there. But back to the story.
You're up on the window.
Up on the window, and they throw it out. I catch it on first try, put it around me, fall back into the water under their direction, and I'll tell you, it was like barefoot skiing across that water. The way they'd pulled us, it was that fast, or pulled me. And as soon as I hit shore, I said, "You gotta go get my wife." And they went and done the same thing to her. She climbed up on the window, and she grabbed it on first try and fell back into the water, and she'll say the same thing. I've never been going so fast across the water. And we were laying there on shore, sopping wet. And a truck pulled up, and these two men said, "We need your truck." To put them in the back and lay them down. It wasn't it was just a single cab truck pickup. And they said, "We got to break the ice, bitter cold wind off of them." And sure enough, he did that. But at that time, the police weren't there yet. The ambulance wasn't there yet. These two fellows walked over, and they said, "We're going to have to leave here soon. We're all done." And I had taken a look back at the lake, and the car had totally sunk.
Oh, my.
And so how many angels it took to hold up a car, I know they're very strong, but there were multiple unseen angels holding that vehicle up from drowning.
Because it sank right after your wife got out.
Yes,
right?
Yes. So anyhow, I sat up, knowing they were leaving. We thanked them, but they took off their two coats, and they were identical brand new coats, and they wrapped them around us and put us in that back bed of that truck. And I sat up to say, "Okay, where these guys go?" I'm looking, there's no vehicle, not walking through the farmer's field, not going up on the farmer's porch or anything. They had disappeared. So there were multiple angels there, but two of them we could see. And basically after that, they took us to the hospital, and I was being checked out because of the concussion on my head. And she was done and ready to go, and sheriff says she says to the sheriff, where are these people that took care of us and whatever? Do you know who they are or anything? And he says, "What people?" There were no people there other than that truck that pulled up. And so we We knew. And he says, oh, by the way, late Merry Christmas, she just got 2 coats. You know,
The angels gave you coats.
angels gave us coats.
You described that both of you were at peace amidst the turmoil. I think your blood pressure was up to 200 because of the hypothermia.
Yes. When they had got us in the ambulance, it was over 200. But they said, don't worry about that. It'll come down. This is normal. But out there, we were at perfect peace. We had discussions with each other on, wouldn't it be wonderful if when it's time to go home, we could go together? And we were so calm, actually thinking probably that's what's happening. We're going to go home. But the Lord had plans for us, and we're here again today.
He's got a purpose for you.
Correct.
You said through that miracle, you realized God had more for you to do, and it started to bring memories from earlier in life.
Yes.
It's almost like God was grabbing them and bringing them back, and you were seeing how they all went together.
Right.
Can you tell me about the motorbike accident?
Motorbike accident, yeah. It was last time I was going to ride it for the winter, and she was going to give the dog a bath, and I says, I'll be back in a little bit. And I went out, and somebody gave me a new cap, and I put it on my head, and I turned my head around. I laid the bike down on, and I'm holding my head up to keep my face from rubbing in the gravel road, and arched, and the bike hit me in the groins. And out of that, 30 days later, I didn't want to go to the hospital. Came blood clots, and they said, basically, cutting the story short, is you got 3 choices. You can either be stubborn and not do anything. You can wait till tomorrow and be dead, or there is an experimental surgery that we can do.
Now, did you not go when you had the accident? You were stubborn and didn't go to the hospital for 30 days?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, wife cleaned me up and she had the right answer. I didn't. I should have went.
How'd the accident occur?
I laid the bike down, and the bike hit me in the groins, and we're sliding along in the gravel, and I got my head up just enough to keep from getting my face into the gravel, and it tore me up from here to here, and I had blood clots 30 days later.
Okay, so you got the 3 choices.
Yeah. And
I think pray was one of them.
Oh, that was right at the top. You know, when she seen my feet were black and my legs were purple.
This is the nurse?
My wife.
Oh, when she saw
Doctor showed her. He says, how long they been this way? She says, what do you mean, how long they been that way? And she looked, she went out to admit me into the hospital. And while they were, checking me out,
So what happened?
a year later, the same day, had attack again on him with blood clots. That time we were able to come through that, or all right. But these blood clots took their toll. That was the first thing that happened. There's one more surgery in between there that we didn't mention in that time period, is that I had to have gallbladder removed, full of stones. And so you can see how my body is just adjusting from one thing to another, to another, to another, to another. But during that time, so many things had happened. We had an accident about 5 years prior to that, going down to Indy to the auction, and we come back and
5 years prior to the miracle in the ice?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're coming back, came over a hill, similar to the mound, but this was on the road, and traffic was coming heavily on the left. I couldn't go to the left because this girl had stopped on the road, and that's what I came upon. I knew I had just taken on gas, and so I took the Suburban, and we went out across through a pile of rocks sitting by this guy's driveway, and we're flying across, come down and landed on all 4, and we walked away from that. But there's 2 similar parts of the last accident, along with another accident, And I could go through, and I know we don't have enough time to do that, but I could go through 12 to 15 things that were like that when the final accident hit.
You see how God protected you all the way through.
Yes, but because of being on blood thinners for so long, Dr. Souter, a good friend and mutual friend of each of us, determined, he thought that I had developed over a period of 3 to 6 months PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes. And being that your mind doesn't really know what you're putting into it, but it only knows what you put into it. It couldn't decipher. So each one of those incidences, it would pick up, and then here, done it again, here, done it again. And all of a sudden, that must have been what sprung it off. And so now we're treating that. And now we're finding treating that's a blessing in itself. I look back at the accident and say, this is so fantastic. You get to the point, I've had an interesting life, but you think, oh, I'm an old man now, nothing's going on. You know, it ain't clicking. And now this has opened up avenues where everywhere we go, we can talk to people about something and tie this whole thing together. It's just been amazing. If you put that priority first, there are so many people out there, Mitch, that in times what's going on now and the world situation and everything, people are so scared. And I guess this PTSD is a very common thing. And people are scared.
Yeah.
And the thing is that so many of them don't have the assurance that the Lord has a purpose for them in their life.
Right.
And without that, man, I wouldn't want to be walking on the face of the earth today without knowing the Lord. It's tough out there, it really is. But God has it all under control. I believe that with everything that's in our hearts. And actually, this whole thing has sprung out a whole new thing, and now we're back excited about we got something to do.
That's awesome. Art, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your story. You gave your life to Christ at an early age. You endured the loss of your father when you were 11 years old. You built a very successful business. You ministered through it. So many lives have been impacted by you. And now to share this miracle that God has done in your life will help so many. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And God bless everyone.
Amen.
I'm Lynn Ford. Join me and Mitch Cruz next week on the Restoration Road.
Back together again.